Wait for the well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the LDF committee. It's a bit like a substitutes meeting because you've got a substitute chairman and substitutes all over the place, and special attendance by Councillor Phillips.
Yeah.
So, do we need to do the evacuation procedure, or do you all know it?
I haven't been for a while, Chair. Perhaps you can.
Well, it's that way, or if not,
I remember now.
apologies for absence. Mr. Tobin, the list.
We have a apologies from Councillor Riley, who's substituted by Councillor Hayfield. Apologies from Councillor Ridley, who is substituted by Councillor Media.
Are those apologies noted? Are you all happy with them? We note those. Welcome to Councillor Media and Councillor Hayfield. Hope you have a nice, exciting evening. Disclosure of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. Anybody have anything you wish to reveal to the committee? No, thank you very much. Minutes of the meeting of the Local Development Framework Subcommittee held on the 4th of July. Are you content that I signed them as a true and accurate record?
Yeah.
Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Agenda item number 6, a summary of the Sustainability Appraisal Scoping Report for consultation. Chief Executive, over to you.
We were asked at the last meeting to do a summary of the SA scoping, which was rather long and complicated. So we produced the leaflet as Appendix A, and this is an example of the sorts of document that will also be producing for all the other documents that will be going out for consultation at the same time. They won't be all exactly the same, but they'll be roughly their sort of length of a couple of sides, and we'll aim to do that for all of the other documents that are going out at the same time for consultation. I'm happy to take any questions, but hopefully it's met the brief of making it a lot simpler and easier to understand.
Thank you.
I'll just make the comment, I think it's an excellent document, and I'd very much like to thank Dorothy and her team for preparing this. I think it's really helpful.
I would say completely agree. Compared to, I mean, I'm not being rude about the previous one, but it was a bit difficult to understand. My only comments is that now I can understand it. I think some of it, I'm not sure how we will actually achieve. So, if you like, 2D, support, empower, connect communities to create a healthier and just society. I can see how planning can get into doing stuff to create a healthier lifestyle. I'm just not sure about just. I mean, it's an entirely laudable aim. You know, I'm sure we can all agree that that's what we want to get to. But I'm just not sure how the planning process gets us to that. And there's a few things that it almost to me seems to cross over between the council's policy and planning. So urgently and drastically reduce carbon emissions from transport to contribute to the council's decarbonisation commitment. Absolutely, that's what we need to do. I'm not sure how urgently and drastically fits into planning. It's that sort of, you know, I mean, generally we have a low carbon agenda, and we have a crisis management and a climate emergency. Just not sure that we are on the right side of the fence with those. And then I wasn't sure, to be honest with you, about tranquility, about how tranquility, and I know CPRE and some others have raised it, but is tranquility yet, if you will, within the NPPF and other planning issues? Desirable though tranquility, I'm sure, is.
It was actually used within the appeal for the Royal Mail appeal, because the words tranquility are actually used in the Arley Naval Plan. and the inspector actually took on board that and accepted that within that area of the borough that there was issues of there was the protection of that tranquility of that area should be something that we should be working towards. So yes, it was, and it has been used under a plan umbrella.
And is tranquility aside from the Arley neighbourhood plan? Is it in the borough plan?
No. So that would be something that when we move forward to the next iteration of a development plan that we could be looking at.
Thank you. Councillor April.
Feel sort of a bit of an interloper on this. It's been years since I've been to one of these. The layout of the actual report itself in Appendix A, I think, is nice and clear and simple and back to the point. That's really good. I share some of Mark's concerns. But am I right in thinking this is basically a sort of almost like a mission statement, a filter by which things will be viewed, or what planning policies will be viewed in the future? Would that be a sort of a summation of it? In terms of consultation, we want to talk just a little bit about physically how you consult. I mean, you're just popping it on the website and hoping somebody looks at it, and in which case they're not going to get past the title. If it was something, I'm not saying mission statement is the right words, but something like that, that members of the public they might look at and think, oh yes, and take the time to open up a web page and look at it. At the moment, I think the title itself, perhaps it has to be that, but it looks very off-putting, whereas the document itself is quite open and inviting. Love the idea of tranquility, like Mark says. Even in my area, it's not all that tranquil these days. Sorry, that was it.
Okay.
In terms of the consultation, yeah, I can see that it can be quite off-putting, especially when we talk about the sustainability appraisal itself. However, that is a document that we will have to produce that will accompany the local plan. So what we're also looking to do is to produce another leaflet, which is which outlines all the documents that we're going out for consultation at the same time, so that it's clear that this is just one of a number of documents that will go out for consultation. And as you can see in the back of item 7, we talk about the statement of community involvement, which explains the sorts of ways we will consult when we do this. And one of the ways will be drop-in sessions, and as well as doing leaflet drops, but we'll also be talking to people, as well as have arranged meetings with like the parish councils and things like that to explain what the documents are about, and hopefully that will help in terms of that planning speak. So happy to look at the title of that.
Anything that makes it more user friendly. Other people involved in planning and professionals will no doubt get it and understand it straight away.
I don't think this rudely, Colin, but you should have seen what we had last time.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I following what Councillor Taylor says, generally I like the look and feel of this. But I accept what you're saying about the titles of the mouse. Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, I mean, the previous version of this, nigh 300 pages, I don't think there's ever going to be a Goldilocks version of this where it's got all the information in about 4 sentences. So that I think the flow chart is there to give a good visual, and it's down to how well the comms team get that message out about what it actually means for certain communities, certain groups. And try and get as many people as we can from the awareness sessions. And you rightly identified some of the parish councils can cascade that information down to local areas as well. I'm sure why do that as well.
Any other comments, members? So, Councillor Taylor, were you proposing that we put this out for consultation?
I think that's the proposal in the agenda, isn't it?
So you want to,
Yeah, I'm happy to propose that.
and seconder?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think if you could just look at those things that that we talked through. I mean, but broadly, it's for consultation. So let's see what the people have to say about it. I do think, as far as we can, we should be trying to engage as many people to engage with this as we can, because the documents are always better if there's more people with it. So, all those in favour of sending this for consultation? That's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is the draft Gypsy and Traveller Development Plan document, scope, issues and options for consultation. Chief Executive again.
At the last meeting, there was a request for a member meeting, and so the document was actually circulated to all members of the council, and the member meeting was held last week. This evening, I'm seeking approval for the document for consultation again, subject to the final proofreading. There were some comments by members last week about the flow of it and just making sure that it was in as plain English as we possibly could. Again, alongside the document, there'll be hopefully an easy to read leaflet as well. And in terms of the number of questions, there are a number of questions in the document, but what we will do is make it clear in the consultation document that people can answer as many questions as they wish, or as few questions as they wish, and it's up to them how many questions. So we will make sure that happens in the document as well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Members, I apologise I wasn't able to attend that meeting. I unexpectedly had a tooth out. It perhaps been better if I had gone, because I had a padding in my mouth. I couldn't speak, so it might have been a shorter meeting.
Would have been a pleasure.
Thank you, Councillor. Any comments or questions? In which case, I'll propose that we send this for public consultation.
Seconded.
All those in favour? Thank you very much. The statement of community involvement. Anything to add to your report?
No, just to say that this is an update with the 2007 version. It really just takes account of social media. And again, before we go out for consultation, we'll just make sure that the final proofreading is done on it. But it is a document within the current planning system that we must have up to date. And so again, we'd ask that it could go out for consultation.
I have a few comments. Members, do you want to ever go before me, or shall I? I certainly agree with the proofreading. We didn't have 624,000 residents of the borough. I think it's probably 62,000 and something. I have a concern that in a couple of places we talk about consultation as resources allow. And I don't think we should be saying that. I think we should be talking about consultation. If there is an issue on resources, that could go to members, and then we decide to make more cash available or not. I wouldn't like people to think that we were predetermining how we were going to consult based on the money. So personally, in a couple of places, members, I think the important thing is we should be saying to people, actually, we want to consult you, we want to engage. If there is a financial constraint to that, I think the council's got to address that somehow, but not up front, put a barrier in the way. That just feels good to me. There's a reference in 5.2 to the legal duty to cooperate, which I thought had been amended. I don't think it's a full duty to cooperate anymore. 5.5, it says, in addition, anyone can subscribe via the council's website. Subscribe, in my head, always has a financial consultation. I think people can engage with it, but I don't think I know it's only a word, but I think subscribe might put people off because it implies they've got to pay, which they haven't. 5.6, the council wants to ensure that no ethnic groups are excluded from public consultation exercise. I think that's absolutely right. But it's not just ethnic groups, it's broader than that. There's the disability and other areas, and I think we should just be clear that that's all of it. And then one things I really am not keen on, 5.8, it says the council will make every effort to meet the requirements of the Equality Act and Associations Act. I think we will meet them. We won't try to, we will make sure we do it. 6.4 has got another thing on consultation. So, I mean, broadly, you know, there's a lot of stuff in here that was right. When I read it, it was just bits like that, which you might well change when you do the final proofreading. But, you know, it was making sure that we are addressing race and disability discrimination, not implying that we're going to restrict consultation because of money. Anything else? Anybody? Councillor?
Yeah, Chair, I was looking at from what I've seen in the past, and we've had a static population, 2001 to 2011. I was told that the population only grew between the census, it's by about 100. And things have obviously must have changed, but your figures here are based on 2018, that's 5 or 6 years ago, so things are changing. But I'm just thinking about where I live, you know, 350 houses in Water, 150 houses or 130 houses in Osprey, 40 houses, 50 houses in fact in Wharton, and all those houses are occupied. So I just wonder, in the last few years, if the growth is actually exponential, it's going, and are we sitting at, because I seem to remember people saying, oh, it's 62,000, and I've been a councillor for 12 years. It can't have been 62,000 for 12 years, especially with the amount of houses we're building. So I wonder what the real number is today, rather than what it was in 2018.
I think one of the differences is that we've got more houses now that only one person lives in them than we used to have.
Only one person is, sorry.
Only one person lives in. We are at a historical hiatus in terms of single occupancy, but Dorothy, anything to?
I think the population now is, I will check and circulate it, but from the census, I think it was around 64,000 is the recent population. So, but I will check that and circulate that.
Thank you.
Councillor Taylor?
I was going to suggest that was the case, and that therein lies how this error of 624 came in, because the original document said 62. Then Dorothy probably changed it to make it 64, but added the 4, but didn't delete the 2. It's quite simple. But yes, I mean, I think it's absolutely right that yes, there are a number of houses with only one person in them, but there have also been a number of larger houses built within the borough, certainly within the last 5 years. But yeah, you only need to look around, particularly in, I would say, in your area and in the northern part of Aston. That's particularly true.
If I could just say, I was talking to somebody from Blaws the other day, and we were talking about donuts, which took forever to actually get off the ground. And the person told me they've sold half off plan already, and they still haven't put the roads in. It's just amazing if it's going to happen. Because it's in a major settlement, it's probably going to take off like that. But it becomes more than just, it's a spurt rather than, but those spurts become significant numbers of people.
If I could just make a comment about the duty to cooperate, that is still within the current regulations. And because we are currently working with the SCI and the Employment DPD, the Gypsy Travellers, all within the current regulations, the duty to cooperate is still in place. Until the new regulations and the new levelling up bill becomes act, then that is when the situation will change.
I need this as a reminder, really, Dorothy. Can you explain to me, and any masses of the public listening into this, exactly what a statement of community involvement is and how it relates to the next local plan we produce? Just in a nutshell.
It actually sets out how we consult in terms of planning policy at the front end and planning application. And that's basically, that should be the absolute minimum of how we then consult the local communities. So we can do more than, but we shouldn't do less than.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Members, any other comments or
With the
proposals?
recommendation, Chair?
Thank you. And can we amend some of the things I
As
referred to as appropriate? Seconded by, thank you very much, Councillor Osborne. All those in favour? Thank you, so that's carried. Now we go on to the draft employment development plan document for scopes, issues and options for consultation. Anything to add?
Just basically just to say that this is at the very start of the process again of producing a planning policy document. It basically sets out scope, issues and options, in some cases options. Members will recall that in the adopted local plan, there's policy LP6, which talks about strategic employment. And this is one of the issues that we are trying to seek views on in terms of the way that we go forward. And it is very much the first stage in this. And again, we'd be producing a leaflet to try and make it as simple as possible. And although, as you can see, there are a number of questions, again, we'd make sure that people can answer as many questions or as few questions as they wish. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hickman?
Yeah, probably slightly lower, but how much of this are we actually masters of our own destiny on this? Can we actually decide what employment land we want, where, and to what extent are we being told by others what we should have?
Very interesting questions.
Oh, good.
We're looking,
Let's have an interesting.
we're looking forward to the answer.
I think it's a bit of that there is a local plan policy, an adopted plan, which says that we should be doing certain things. We have policies in there, and this is seeking a way forward, people's views on where we go to next in terms of all of that. At the end of the day, we are the local planning authority. We make the planning policies for our area, but they have to be in line with the National Planning Policy Framework, and in the future, the National Development Management policies as well. So, for a point, it is in our guidance.
Just come back on that, Chair, just a little bit, please. So, in terms of neighbouring authorities, they can tell us what they would like, and we can tell them where to go. We have to say, oh, well, if you want us to do this, we better do it then, haven't we?
No, there is the duty to cooperate, but it isn't a duty to agree. So it's up to us.
Council, isn't it?
Chair, if I could just comment on that latter point with regard to the duty to cooperate. It is an issue that we're all more than aware of, and as part of our, which we'll come to later in this subcommittee report, it is an issue we're aware of, and we make strident and robust responses to other authorities, local plans, scopes and issues where we believe they aren't addressing the issues that we as a borough council in planning terms are. With reference to LP6, that came through the local plan inquiry, as you're aware, and we have raised this issue with others, particularly in the South Warwickshire plan, but we have raised this issue and mentioned that it needs to be addressed by others who are also current local process. In light of the duty to cooperate, and because we have raised this issue, it would be very risky of other authorities not to undertake a similar assessment and be similarly aware of the issue. in light of our comments. So it's a bit of a catch-22. Yes, that they may be in circumstances where they look for additional authorities to help, but similarly there will be others that will be in our situation, and we're trying to make sure we work as cooperatively as we can, which is part of the duty, but also try and avoid us being, for want of a better word, targeted. The difficulty is probably not with local authorities, it is probably more with the wider strategic need within the West Midlands and East Midlands area by the market itself. That's where the national policies tend to bring in. And if they can address those issues, that does make it difficult for us to defend it from the local sense. Unless, and I stress the unless, we have addressed the issues of the local plan process and we have given a reason, either A, why we can't accommodate, or if we have to accommodate demand, we are in control in where and how it is applied, and that is critical.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Kane?
Couple of questions and some clarification. My understanding of the process for these DPDs is that once we've agreed them, they have to be approved by a planning inspector, and therefore they would have to comply with national policies, and we would have to have been seen to cooperate. One of the things certainly in this employment DPD that I would want to see is firstly that we are consulting with local communities. Identifying land for employment opportunities is one of the most controversial things for communities. So if you're going to put, for example, a petrochemical plant right next to some new houses, then that we ought to be consulting with those communities. And not just consulting with employers. And I think drawing out some of those questions, because most of us want to see employment close to where we live, but employment for one thing might be acceptable, but employment for something else, for example, distribution off a road that's like barely 2 lanes wide, might be something else. And the site that springs to mind is the 3M site, which very soon will be decommissioned, which I think would potentially be seen as employment land, but whether that employment land would be suitable for distribution and warehousing, if it was accessed off Ratcliffe Road, is another question. So I think actually maybe drawing out some of those questions about types of employment sites would be helpful. And I'd want to see a commitment from this body that we were going to consult with local communities, because my understanding is these documents are going out for consultation, and simultaneously we're also asking for a call for sites at the same time as consulting on the wording of these DPDs. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. So there would be that call.
Fair point. But like I say, we don't have to. It's up to us to decide
Absolutely.
on that tonight. And whether you want to put some ventilation in between the two things together. So I guess, officers, my question really to begin with is around timescale. When do we need to do this by? Do we need to do it now?
My advice as a planning officer is yes, we need to get on with this now, because LP6 was in the adopted plan in 2021 and it's now 2023. We've got to submit to the Secretary of State in the current plan making system by June 2025. So that means that we've got to have gone through Regulation 18 consultation, Regulation 19 consultation, with the submission version then submitted to PINS by June 2025. And because it's likely that we may be looking at sites in terms of site allocations, that's what takes the time in terms of this. So this is only the very first stage. In terms of the call for sites, that is at the very early stage of us generally knowing where potentially those sites could come forward. But for Regulation 18, which would be a draft local plan, that may well, and I don't know whether it will, as we sit here today, have site allocations in it. But if it did, then there would be specific consultation of the local communities around any of those sites. And that's actually within the SCI that's just been approved for consultation. So, at the stage from where we go from here, to each stage, the draft plan will be brought towards members. So following the issues and options, we'll then bring a report of all the comments that have been made. What has happened in previous versions of issues and options for the core strategy and for the local plan is that we get sites being submitted anyway. People will just generally submit the sites along with their representation. So to formalise that and say we're doing a call for sites, but that doesn't stop us adding to a further call for sites before or after the Regulation 18 or the Regulation 19 stages. So it is the starting point of where we're moving towards. But as I say, at each stage, we'll be bringing back the representations and then taking on board members' comments as we then move through to the next stages.
Given that a week's a long time in politics, getting to June 2025 is bags of time. Councillor Taylor.
I think I just have a slight concern that there's such a volume of different documents all going out for consultation at the same time. So local communities will find it difficult to focus on one or the other. So, for example, they may have strong feelings about one, but not such strong feelings about another. And then they'll find afterwards that they've missed the opportunity to be consulted on, for example, the employment sites, because they focused their attention on something else, and whether it's possible to slightly stagger the time so that parish councils, for example, could have different things on the agenda for different meetings rather than all at the same time.
I think, Councillor Taylor, we're heading in the same direction here, but let's see where the conversation goes. Councillor Hayfield, then I'll come back to you.
I agree with that. I think you could flood a parish council with lots of consultations and things, and the chances are that they might have views, but they're not quite sure which consultation it should go to. But you almost want to have a conversation with each parish council, for example, that just talks about the aspirations of that parish council, in the knowledge that that information will feed into the various official consultations you're doing. Because otherwise, you might want to have a view on something or aspirations on industrial land, employment and everything else, and housing. But you haven't necessarily been asked at the right time and given a response to the right question going through. You're left not really getting a feel of what the aspirations of Manchester Parish Council, for example, is, or Polesworth Parish Council, on a raft of things. I don't know how you'd manage that, but if you really wanted to understand what local views are, you need, I think, to go to that sort of level rather than just hope they're going to push the right buttons on this slew of consultation documents that are going to be going through over the next few months.
Do you want to respond now, or wait for all the comments?
Well, I've got one suggestion. Normally, our consultation lasts for 6 weeks. I'd be quite happy that all the documents, because they are interlinked in some ways, particularly the SCI, the draft sustainability appraisal, not necessarily the employment and the Gypsy and Traveller DEPD, but all the other documents fit together in terms of setting that initial level of document. So what we could do is extend the consultation period, say even up to 12 weeks, but that would cover at least 3 parish council meetings for those 3 months. But equally, what we've done in the past is that we've done a parish council meeting before even the consultation starts, where we've invited all the parish councils to come along for sort of like a pre-meet to talk to them through what the documents are, where they can find things, what is actually in the document, and that we can answer any initial questions. But also what we've also done in the past is gone along to parish council meetings, and anybody who's invited us, we've gone along and actually talked through any of the documents as well. Because this is the initial stage, if at say the end of those 12 weeks, that there is still some parish councils that are unsure about how to answer it or whatever, it's not a set deadline, that we can always extend that even further if somebody comes to us and says, actually, we haven't been able to do this, but we can do this by a certain day. So that would be how I would suggest that we deal with it, so that all of the documents are going out at one stage. But I'm in your hands in terms of that. But it would be helpful though, because of the interlinking of the documents, it would probably be a difference between the employment DPD and the Gypsy and Traveller DPD that perhaps would be staggered rather than a lot of the other documents. So all of the documents would perhaps go out for 12 weeks or whatever, but it may be that we can stagger them in terms of that. But as I say, I'm in your hands as to where you can go.
I have a bunch of comments that I want to make, but I do want to give everyone the opportunity first. Councillor Osborne, then Councillor Hayfield.
So, I think that's a really good idea, Dorothy, to have it over 12 weeks. You could put all the documents at the front end and then explain as it goes, have a theme for each parish that concentrates on each one. So all of the documents, in effect, will still get the 12 weeks, even though you've got a theme for each one as you move through. So we're just going to try and do some meaningful engagement, meaningful consultation. That way, I think, goes a little bit better way doing it through the parishes than just online and leaflet drops.
Thank you, Jeff. I like that. I think it's a great idea. I think logistically, trying to deal with every parish council individually will be difficult, but there are natural groupings of parish councils. Polesford and Dordon might go together, or Arley, Ansley and might go together, and things. Hartsel might go together. The Addisons and Manchesters and things. You get 2 or 3 parish councils that you collectively have a conversation with, which would make that more manageable, given if we had notice of locations, meeting dates, etc., etc. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Humphries.
I was just going to say, I once went to 2 different parish council meetings and explained to them that the inspector considered Manchester and Addison the same place in terms of planning, and Dordon and Polesford, and then I had to sort of avoid the rocks because, as far as people are concerned, they're separate, they're dwellings. So that could be a hard sell. I was just looking at this map here in terms of this document here, page 51, and the map says immediate and potential industrial land supply, West Midlands, end 2014. I can't see how we can send that out 9 years ago, as far as people are concerned. And the other thing that I was surprised at is when you look at the top of the map, Stoke and North Staffordshire, that may have an effect on us, but the top one is almost junction 17 on the M6. If you're living down at junction 10 in Polgate, Polesworth, should I say, or Birchmoor, I wonder why you would think junction 17 on the M6 would have an effect. And I wonder if that map is actually relevant to or confusing to what people will see. It's too old in terms of the data. And I was also looking at the East Staffordshire one. I mean, we all travel around at the moment. If you get on the A38 corridor that runs between Alderwas and and Burton, it is a corridor. There are now 3 major warehouse sites being built left and right of that road, and it's become a corridor surrounded completely by modern development. So I think things like that map on a document for the public has got to be relevant to 2023, as far as I can see, and going forward, not back to 2014. Thank you. I got to put that on. Did you hear me?
So, members, the parts of the document that concern me, parts I just don't like. What I don't like, particularly as regards question 7, and in particular, I'm sort of okay.
Page E1.
Sorry, page 8 of the draft. So, question it says question 7, and it's talking about how we're going to interpret the sites to an extent. So it's partially that, and also on the top of page 20. So 15.2 says the Coventry and Warwickshire Housing and Economic Land Availability Assessment methodology undertaken in February 22 will be used by the Borough Council to assist with the initial sifting of sites. And I hate that document with a passion. I hate it so much that not long ago the council decided that we would go with other constituents, other authorities in the West Midlands to have a different document, see if that was better. Where we are paying towards a document that the other West Midlands authorities are considering the land use. I think we should wait for the results of that document to be available, as opposed to one which the paper in itself says was deeply flawed. I just don't want to use that at all. Sorry, Darcy.
Sorry, if I could explain. At 15.2, it's a housing and economic land availability assessment, which is a methodology for assessing sites that is different from the Housing and Economic Development Needs Assessment, the HEDNA, which is referred to in question 7. So the methodology is purely a checklist of how we would assess sites when they've been put forward through the call for sites. So the LDF subcommittee and I think the executive board have approved that as part of the process going forward.
So I've misunderstood.
No, yeah, it's very easy to get them muddled up. In terms of the HEDNA, that is the document that has been prepared by Coventry and Warwickshire local authorities. It is a piece of evidence, and the question at question 7 is saying, is that the right document to use, or is there anything else that we should be using?
I'm generally relaxed about the HEDNA. What I'm bothered about is the document that was produced by the left, which is referred to in here. And
yeah.
I think broadly what I'm trying to say is we have that document produced by the left, which the authority, certainly I have significant concerns about, and we have commissioned another report.
Yeah.
And my fundamental question is, wouldn't it be better to wait for the outcome of that further report before we start consulting on what we should do?
That would be one option, because as Councillor Humphrey says at page 51 and 52, that's the extract from the 2015 original strategic sites study. Because the 2021 study that was prepared by the 3 LEPs in South Staffordshire County Council, or South Staffordshire Council, is the one that we haven't supported. Yeah. And you're absolutely right that we are awaiting the first draft of the West Midlands Strategic Sites study. We've had no timetable yet as to when we will actually get that. We were hoping that it would be here now, but in a way, I think it would be good to tease out issues before we get that document, but equally I can see the idea of waiting until we have that document in place. So again, in your hands on that one, but I would suggest that because of the June 2025 timetable, and we're not sure when we'll actually get the West Midlands Strategic Site study, that I would prefer it, if at all possible, that this goes out for consultation, knowing that West Midlands strategic site study information would have to be fed in at some stage.
And members, it's your call, but I have to say, for me, sorry, I got the wrong section. It's paragraph 7.1, page 8. And we talk about the 2015 study, about the work that we, along with the other authorities, have commissioned. To my mind, this stuff that was done by the LEPs is potentially so dangerous to North Warwickshire because it just allocates blobs for B8, more or less covers the whole of the borough. It's dangerous, I think. This new study hopefully will give us a better view. And, given that it's something we're paying in part for, I'd rather we waited for our own research to come. Now, there are a bunch of concerns I have about the development for employment land. And I think that this DPG raises a bunch of questions that would be good to have consultation on. Councillor Taylor, I completely agree with what you're saying. I think there's a bunch of issues here. Like Councillor Hayfield was saying about organisations being confused. I equally understand what you're saying about they have teams. I think with the Gypsy Traveller consultation document, we step back at the last meeting and say, actually, let's consult ourselves first. I'm sort of tempted by that approach because I think there's a lot of members that don't really understand where this is going yet and what the issues are. And I think it will be a great opportunity for us to follow the template that we had with the Gypsy Traveller DPD, consult ourselves, talk to ourselves. It's up to members if they turn up or they don't, and engage or they don't. But I'd rather we gave them an opportunity because the one thing that I'm aware of a lot of members across the chamber are bothered about, starting with the site up by Dordon and going across everybody's patch, is where employment land is going to be and what uses that's going to be put to. So I hear where you're coming from, Dorothy, and I'm not trying to dismiss it, but I think we need to talk to members more to raise the awareness level. And if that gives us the opportunity to get the West Midlands study under our belt and then redraft this, I feel way more comfortable. Councillor Taylor.
I mean, just in my other role, I'm aware of huge changes that have been made to employment sites within our area that are on the fringes of other local authorities that at the moment we have a duty to consult with. If that information is not within our consultation document, I think we're going to be doing ourselves down. Yeah. So, for example, all of the development around Junction 10, close to the edges of Tamworth, we need to be saying that's already there. Equally, the massive expansion of Hams Hall on the fringes at that end. There are also going to be quite significant bits of land, I think, that will become available again, which were taken by HS2 and won't then be needed, which could be coming back to us. And we don't yet know what they will be. I think there's an awful lot of info, and the document that we've already commissioned, I think there's an awful lot of information that could really help us when we go out for meaningful consultation. And it kind of feels like it's a little bit too early for the consultation on the employment DPD. However, I'm also conscious that it makes more sense to put it within this framework. So, and that deadline of June 2025, I mean, it seems a long way off, but I'm sure that there's quite a lot that has to be done. So I'd kind of like to ask the question, if we work back from June 2025, when is the latest that we would need to be going out for consultation on this? Approximately, I'm not going to hold you to it, and therefore, how much can we delay it, and could we then see these other things that are already happening?
I was going to ask Dorothy if I could. We've already mentioned 2025 there. Are the other authorities constrained by the same date? So effectively, that's never going to move, but we'll get pinched because if people don't give us the information, we're still going to have to hit the same date. So how do we consult properly if people like the West Midlands don't play the game at the moment?
Yeah, but that's it's not the West Midlands as a organisation. It's a group of people, I think. Councillor Haysham.
I like the idea of more elected member involvement and views being taken. And if we have at least some delay to this, to do that, and then see what further information we get back from any consultants.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Phillips, you've been remarkably well behaved sitting there listening. You got anything you want to?
I'm learning really quite a lot. Well, I struggle with.
Could we ask Dorothy to reply to the point about the timescale?
Yeah, Joe, I don't know if it's any help before Doc responds, if I just make some observations. Case law requires consultation to be meaningful, and that means there's basically 4 components with that. First is it's got to be at the outset of your proposal, so when you're in the formative stage. Secondly, it's got to go out via the right means. Third, to the right people. But the most important thing is the content. And if we are aware that there are a number of factors that may change our proposal, we should be making sure that we've got as many of those incorporated as possible, because to be meaningful and get meaningful responses from individuals, if they come back and comment on this and then we go out and say, well, actually, something different, then they're wasting the time they have got. And the other difficulty is they may be denied an opportunity to consult at the right stage. So I know there is, except what Dr. said, there is a statutory process later that follows. It's how we do this. But of course, the product of the early consultation will feed into what we later consult on via that process. So we could inadvertently end up shaping this the wrong way because we've got answers about things that are no longer relevant.
Thank you. Councillor Hayden?
So, Chair, do you have an amended recommendation for this?
I do, but Dorothy was going to respond to some things first, I think.
Yeah, in terms of the consultation, I would probably say it takes a good probably 5 to 6 months to do a regulation consultation, mainly because of the time it takes to prepare for it, the actual consultation, and then dealing with all the representations afterwards. And that will, of course, depend on how many representations. So to get to June 25 and be in a position to submit by June 2025 is a tall order, I would personally say, particularly if there's allocations, site allocations. It seems to be, in my experience, as soon as we add any site allocations into a document, that's what slows the process down. Because all of the evidence that you need for those particular sites, the sustainability appraisal work that needs to go into those. So I would say the sooner the better, from my perspective, to get out for consultation. And I think that's where knowing that the West Midlands Strategic Sites Study is on the cusp of being drafted and sorted, but we still haven't had that yet. So one option could be that I might be able to suggest to members is that we could arrange a members meeting in late October, maybe because I'll be on leave, but then the next meeting of the LDF is on the 11th, I think, of November. And so we could bring it back to the 11th of November. But if at that stage we still haven't got an indication of when the West Midlands Strategic Site Study is going to be out, I would ask members that we then still go out for consultation, knowing that that piece of evidence is going to shape it in the long term for that particular issue, which is the strategic employment sites. But as you can see, the employment DPD just doesn't deal with that particular issue. It deals with a whole range of other issues. So that could be a way forward.
I agree with you. It deals with a lot of those issues, but that's the one that's going to be the most noted. Councillor
Yeah, I think like both of you, we haven't got a lot of time, but we still have got some time. So I'd like to try and use that time to get the evidence from the West Midlands, try and pin them down and see if we can meet with them and get some sort of date or whatever out of them as best we can. At least we've had an attempt to try and get the information up front then before the LDF in November.
And they've been working on this for some months.
Yeah.
Chair, Councillor. Councillor Taylor, then Councillor.
What I was going to propose was almost that we make a decision now, that we go out for consultation. We've already decided on the other documents, but then we delay going out for consultation on this one until a specified date. Now, I think that perhaps needs to be in the new year, and we use the time between now and the next LDF to get some answers to the questions as to when that information is going to become available, so that we have a staggered consultation process. And if that means delaying it until the consultation for the other documents has finished, and then we immediately go out for consultation on this one, I think that's what I'm erring towards would seem to be sensible, because in my experience, if you consult people on something where the document has possibly errors or old information in, that's the only thing which they respond to, rather than the consultation being more meaningful. And I would hope that, I mean, I'm very much in favour of community getting involved in this, and I think it's important that they do. And if it's clouded by out-of-date information, it doesn't help us. So that would be my proposal in response to what Councillor Hayfield has said, would be to propose that we start this consultation immediately that the other consultations have finished, and we go out for consultation then, by which time hopefully we'll have the information. But we do so anyway, even if that information hasn't come in, but we try our best to chivvy that along in the meantime.
And they won't do it twice. Councillor.
I was going to ask Dorothy, is one of the problems with the West Midlands it's a consortium? You know, you're not dealing with an authority trying to solve this problem. Is it a combined authority thing? Or here you're talking about Dudley, Wolverhampton, Sandwell, Birmingham. I mean, it must be very, very difficult.
I think it's a group of authorities that have jointly appointed a consultant to do something.
It is, yes.
So it's not the authorities doing it themselves.
No.
There is one body doing it.
But does he have to go back to 6 masters to actually get it sorted?
25 masters, I think.
Yeah, I think it's 25 local authorities that have clubbed together to actually pay for the study. So hopefully it's well worth it when we receive.
One of which is Birmingham, they're skinned. What I was going around to, and I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying, is I was hoping to nick the resolution from the last minutes on agenda item 6. Approval be given for member consultation be carried out on the draft employment development plan document issue scopes and all that, and to report back to the next meeting. And at that point, we can take a view on when do we want to go out to consultation. But I'm sort of keen that we talk to the council as a whole, see what they think, and I couple that with genuinely encouraging whoever it is that's doing the report to get it to us as soon as they can, even if it's only they give us a heads up on where it's likely to be, because it is material, I think, to what we'd want to do. But I'm genuinely concerned that we should be consulting ourselves before we go and talk to anybody else, and make sure that we're taking as many members of the council with us as we can. There are some, really concerning issues in terms of where applications are going. The site just after the motorway junction at Dordon is extremely contentious. The stuff that's happening on the edge of the other motorway junction at Curdworth is just as contentious in that area. All of the sites are, genuinely causing people a lot of worry and concern. And I think we should get members on board with this as far as we can. If there is any chance that the WMSESS, maybe find an easier acronym, can help us and give us more evidence to ease that pressure, then I think that would be really valuable. So I'd say let's consult ourselves first and then see what happens. But I accept your point, Dorothy. We can't ignore it. We have to get on with it, but maybe a couple of paces behind where you'd rather be. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I'll second that first, the amendments.
Thank you. Are you happy with that, Councillor Taylor? I think we're almost on the same page.
I think we're almost on the same page. I think your proposal is slightly more woolly than mine. Mine is a little bit more direct, as in we will do this on this date and then work backwards from that to give ourselves sufficient time. And I would really like to see us doing that after all the hard work that's gone into this to now.
Yeah.
I think we ought to be saying, but we do wish to consult as soon as we possibly can.
No, and that's fine. A bit of woolly consensus, never do anything.
No.
Are we all happy with that? Councillor Byron, are you? Yeah, you sure? You're comfy with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's proposed, seconded. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, anything to add before we vote?
Sorry, can I
Just
just be very clear about what is being voted upon? Sorry.
So we're going to go to some form of member consultation internally.
Yeah, and then bring it back
to another meeting of the LDF,
Perfect.
and at the same time engage with WMESS
Yes.
and encourage them to tell us what they can as soon as they can,
Yeah.
even if it's just a heads of terms.
Perfect. I just
With a
wanted
view
make
to
sure.
going out for public consultation
As
as
soon
soon
as we
as we're
can.
able to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Excellent. Sorry, I had one question on that. In the appendices, where it's talking about sites, there are under status. There's a bunch of abbreviations. I don't know what they mean. So it's COM, NS, UC.
Under construction completed and not started, I think.
Okay. For numpties like me, can we put it on somewhere that says, because I'll forget again, I'm sure. And the rest of you clearly knew what it was.
Absolutely.
One for you, waiting for builder.
It's a lifetime. Agenda item number 9 is the local development, the Coventry local plan review. Mr. Dickman.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. It's very similar to the documents that we're looking to bring out. It's a early issues and options report on the Coventry's review the plan. But they're basically reviewing in light of changes to the national government policy that have come through. The City Council has changed some of its priorities around the One Coventry plan and their climate change strategy, and their current local plan doesn't reflect this, so that needs to be reflected. The majority of the detailed policies will relate to the area action plan of the city centre primarily, and where those policies, I believe, we have more relationship with or more implications on, I have commented on report. Again, this is a looking for views, opinions and issues report. So they will be asking us and others, what do you think? So they aren't actually specifying site specifics or anything. They want to know what the Coventry area thinks of things and issues, and what they need to address to review the plan.
Thank you. Members, any comment? I've just got a couple. Sorry, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just on 3.2 on the report, it says that the final day for comments, Tuesday, 12th of September, that's tomorrow.
Yes, Chair, that has been extended, but it was tomorrow, and I was intending to respond to.
Thank you.
I could well say you've had since the 18th of July. Councillor Hayfield?
I was looking through this for their section on tranquility, Chairman, and I can't find one.
Coventry is a very tranquil place.
But I'll make the recommendations.
Before you do, if you like, my comments are sort of the levels of growth and duty to cooperate section. I get that saying to the cities you've got to provide an extra 35% is arbitrary. But actually, I have some sympathy with it. I think to target them and to say you've got to build more in your own areas. It's not that long ago we were looking within the memorandum of understanding to try and assist Birmingham and Coventry with their unmet need. I was surprised at one stage that the cities were not trying to have more dense accommodation, and I think they need to. Density is a key for them, and I think it's in everybody in the sub-region's interest that the cities are vibrant and they have a high level of housing. Inevitably, as people go through life, you need different things at different points. So people who are younger than me, I'm sure, want to live closer into the city centre so they can get in and out of the places of entertainment easily. And people older than me actually want to live in a more tranquil area. To do all of that, we really do need vibrant cities. And vibrant cities have got to have high levels of population to be able to support the range of services that are expected of them. Cities growing and becoming, if you like, less dense but bigger areas don't actually meet all of that criteria. And it does put an awful lot of pressure on people like us that sit on the edge of it. So I can understand that an uplift of 35% is a bit arbitrary, but I do think Coventry and Birmingham and all the other cities need to be challenged to actually meet that need and to provide demand in the city centres. Because otherwise the housing overspills, and B, their economic vitality is challenged. So what, if you like, I'm sort of in between what they're saying and what the draft is. I have some sympathy, but not that much. I do think that they need to really build on that. I'm happy with the identification of minima. But, Mr. Dickman, I know the way councils will interpret that. A minimal will become what you aim at, as opposed to you aiming for something more. And I think the cities need to aim for something more. They need to use their land more efficiently, so that areas like North Warwickshire and all of the other rural and semi-rural on their edge end up with less. I do agree with the employment land needs, but we've more or less been to that. But I think that's a fair comment. I'm also slightly concerned about the interpretation of the duty to cooperate, and I'm not sure what we mean by joint monitoring, how that might or might not work, because I think the authorities need to monitor their own plan and tell everybody where they're going with it. We need to know how effectively they are managing that plan. I'm not sure I'm sure what joint monitoring means as to how much effort we would have to go to, as opposed to Coventry or anybody else tells us what they're doing and regularly shares that information. Councillor Humphrey.
I was going to say, if you go back, you and I and Dorothy, we went to Coventry, remember all those years ago when you got ever so upset over the duty to cooperate?
Well, I remember
and they asked 984 houses they wanted at the time, and you were bringing up the fact that the Eastern Relief Road, they weren't even going to consider the Eastern Relief Road. It's open now, well, it's in construction now, and that must have changed their whole aspect now. It's 12 years later, and we look at the whole concept of what they're going to build on that eastern side of Coventry must be totally different now to what it was when we first looked.
It is, and when you look at the development that's taking place on our border with Eastern Green, I think it's called, there is a vast amount of development. I'm sure some members will remember at the last Planning Development Board, we objected to developments in that area, not on the principle, but on the detail that they were not building in an effective buffer going from the city into the countryside. It was urban development right up to the edge with no protection. And I think yes, they need to become incredibly dense in the city, but then gradually move out, and actually the edges that are facing North Warwickshire need that buffer zone to protect the countryside's look and feel. Anyone else? Any comment? No. Mr. Dittman?
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's, I can accommodate that quite easily, I think, through the points you raised on levels of growth and use to operate, because it also fits in well with Chapter 5 on housing, and looking at basically stressing the city's need to develop more land more efficiently and increase densification. They do make comment on that in their report, and I think it's appropriate to stress that the need to be addressing that quite robustly. I know and I'm aware they are looking quite detailed at a process that we've done in the past. You may recall, going back to the early noughties and late 90s, which was the urban capacity study approach, where they're looking at any opportunities within the city boundary itself. That's for redevelopment purposes, as well as the issue of maintaining some elements of employment within that area as well. So there is a balance they have to take, but they are looking at quite detail. So I'm more than happy. I can beef that up and basically say we're challenging to meet that need within that area. So I'm happy to add that as a specific comment. On the duty to cooperate, the joint monitoring, which I've been involved with for a number of years, is more to do with the consistency of approach, so that we all know we're singing from the same hymn sheet in terms of the numbers, and we can address the issue effectively. It's across the sub-region, everything from employment to teaching travellers to housing, and it also covers green infrastructure. So the issue of the buffer is important, and we can look at that and bring that in. We are currently expecting, or I think it has been released, but it's not in the public domain yet, the update on the green infrastructure study, which will identify opportunities in that area. And it is another area, perhaps I can stress here, that we want to see that looked at in more detail and provide that opportunity, obviously, between the two authorities. So I'll factor in somewhere within that, probably under the either the employment land needs or the impact the housing, or possibly just within the levels of growth and just to cooperate, that we would look for consideration of a buffer, because that's the sort of comment that they're looking for. What's important to us as an issue within the Coventry area, and that's important as an issue, so I'll highlight that particularly. And
I think particularly given a lot of the land they're building on was previously Greenbelt and came out of the Greenbelt, so they need to protect what.
That's correct.
Even if it's ours, not theirs. Members, any comments? Or are you happy with we go back with that sort of combined response to Coventry? Yep. So I'll propose that. Seconded by Councillor Humphries. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Agenda item 10, plan making reforms, consultation on implementation.
I'm not proposing to go through it unless you particularly want me to, but you'll see in section 4 there's some observations that I've made on the plan making. Generally, they want to standardise some more things so that you've got a timetable of 30 months, that we do everything within that period, although we have a pre-30 months, up to 4 months, that we can do any pre-work as well. A lot of the things I think can be supported. There's some issues there in terms of infrastructure delivery that have been highlighted, but I'm happy to take any comments in terms of the consultation. I can make that response.
Members? I'd say in my view, the majority of stuff the government consults us on as regards planning is unmitigated junk, but maybe they got this one right.
Usually a bit woolly.
So are you happy, members, that the views of the subcommittee are expressed to the executive board in an appropriate way?
In bolder type, then, please.
Absolutely. Any other comments, members? No, in that case, it's been proposed and I'll second it. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. That's the end of the agenda for your forbearance. And I hope you know remarkably quicker than